In the vast expanse of the United States, rural and urban areas represent two contrasting worlds shaped by different values, economies, infrastructures, and lifestyles. These differences reflect not only the physical geography, but also the cultural, economic, and political divides that shape American society. Rural and urban areas each possess distinct attributes that influence the lives of their residents in profound ways, from education and healthcare to employment opportunities, social interaction, and overall quality of life. Understanding the divide between rural and urban America requires a deep dive into the factors that define each space, their historical development, and the ways in which they continue to evolve in the 21st century. The roots of rural and urban America trace back to the founding of the nation. The United States was initially an agrarian society, with farming as the primary economic activity. As the Industrial Revolution took hold, cities grew rapidly, transforming the demographic and economic makeup of the country. Factories, transportation networks, and the promise of steady employment drew people to urban centers, while rural communities remained rooted in agriculture and resource-based industries. Over time, these demographic shifts led to the concentration of population, capital, and political power in urban areas. Meanwhile, rural regions often experienced population decline, aging demographics, and economic stagnation. This historical evolution created two distinct American experiences, each with its own strengths, struggles, and identity. Urban areas in America are home to approximately 83% of the population, while rural areas comprise the remaining 17%. Cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago boast diverse populations, high population density, and significant immigrant communities. Urban areas tend to attract younger individuals, particularly those seeking education or employment in specialized fields. The demographic profile of urban America is marked by racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity, with higher concentrations of minorities and foreign-born residents contributing to the vibrant mosaic of city life. This diversity often results in a wide range of cultural expressions, festivals, cuisines, and languages spoken. In contrast, rural areas are generally less diverse, with a majority of the population being white. Many rural communities are experiencing demographic aging, with younger generations migrating to urban centers for better opportunities. The population decline in some rural counties has strained local economies and challenged the sustainability of public services and institutions. Rural communities often reflect a more homogeneous culture and slower pace of life, fostering tight-knit relationships and deep-rooted traditions. Despite these characteristics, rural America is not monolithic. There are indigenous populations, Hispanic farming communities, and African American enclaves that add to the diversity of rural life, albeit on a smaller scale. Urban areas are economic powerhouses, offering a wide range of employment opportunities across industries such as finance, technology, healthcare, education, and the arts. Cities benefit from economies of scale, innovation hubs, and global connectivity. Urban workers typically have access to higher-paying jobs, professional development opportunities, and career advancement. However, urban life also comes with higher costs of living, including housing, transportation, and services. The concentration of wealth and industry in cities often results in economic disparities within urban areas, with affluent neighborhoods existing alongside impoverished ones. In rural America, economic opportunities are often limited to agriculture, manufacturing, mining, and small businesses. While the cost of living is generally lower, job options can be scarce, and wages are often lower. Rural workers may face long commutes, limited job security, and fewer benefits. Economic resilience in rural areas is closely tied to natural resources and seasonal employment, making them more vulnerable to market fluctuations and environmental changes. Moreover, rural economies may struggle to adapt to the demands of the digital economy, further widening the gap with urban centers. Urban areas typically offer a broad range of educational institutions, including public and private schools, community colleges, and universities. Urban school districts may benefit from greater funding, specialized programs, and access to technology. However, disparities within urban education systems can be significant, with under-resourced schools often located in low-income neighborhoods. The achievement gap, influenced by socio-economic status and racial inequality, persists in many urban schools despite reform efforts and targeted initiatives. Rural education systems face unique challenges such as limited funding, smaller school sizes, teacher shortages, and fewer extracurricular opportunities. Students in rural areas may travel long distances to attend school, and access to advanced coursework or technology may be restricted. Higher education options in rural areas are limited, leading many students to relocate if they wish to pursue college or vocational training. These challenges can contribute to lower college attendance and completion rates among rural youth. Healthcare access and quality vary significantly between rural and urban America. Urban residents typically have greater access to hospitals, clinics, specialists, and mental health services. Urban healthcare systems benefit from proximity to research institutions, medical schools, and technological advancements. Nonetheless, urban areas may also face overcrowded facilities, long wait times, and disparities in care among different socio-economic groups. Urban residents may benefit from cutting-edge treatments and clinical trials, but navigating complex healthcare systems can be daunting, particularly for those with limited financial resources. In rural communities, healthcare access is often hampered by a shortage of providers, long travel distances to facilities, and limited specialty services. Rural hospitals have faced closures in recent years due to financial instability, reducing options for emergency and routine care. Health outcomes in rural areas tend to be worse, with higher rates of chronic disease, maternal mortality, substance abuse, and mental health issues. Socio-economic barriers and lack of insurance coverage further compound these problems. Public health initiatives in rural areas must contend with logistical challenges and cultural attitudes that may resist outside intervention. Rural America faces a critical shortage of medical care providers, facilities, and resources. Many communities lack hospitals, clinics, or specialists, forcing residents to travel long distances for basic and emergency care. The closure of rural hospitals due to financial strain has further reduced healthcare availability, particularly in low-income areas. Recruitment and retention of medical professionals in rural regions remain major challenges, as fewer providers are willing to work in isolated or under-resourced environments. Telehealth has emerged as a potential solution, but inconsistent internet access and regulatory hurdles can limit its reach. The cumulative impact of these challenges results in significant health disparities that contribute to shorter life expectancy and poorer quality of life in rural regions. The technological divide between rural and urban America continues to widen. Urban areas benefit from high-speed internet, advanced infrastructure, and widespread access to digital tools. This connectivity enhances opportunities for education, business, healthcare, and civic engagement. Urban residents often enjoy the latest technological innovations and can easily integrate them into daily life, enabling remote work, online learning, and access to real-time services. In contrast, rural communities often lack reliable internet access and cellular coverage. Broadband infrastructure is limited in many rural areas, which hampers economic development, restricts educational resources, and limits healthcare options like telemedicine. Students in rural areas may struggle to complete online assignments, and small businesses face difficulties competing in digital marketplaces. Federal and state initiatives have attempted to bridge this digital divide, but progress remains slow and funding can be inconsistent. The technological gap further exacerbates existing inequalities, leaving rural Americans at a disadvantage in a world that increasingly relies on digital connectivity. Lifestyle and culture in rural and urban areas also differ significantly. Urban residents often live in fast-paced environments with access to diverse entertainment options, public events, and cultural institutions such as museums, theaters, and restaurants. City dwellers may experience greater anonymity, but have more opportunities for social networking, professional collaboration, and exposure to new ideas. Rural life is generally slower paced and centered around community and family. Recreational activities often include outdoor pursuits like fishing, hiking, and farming-related events. Social life may revolve around churches, local festivals, and community centers. While rural living can offer peace, natural beauty, and a sense of belonging, it may also entail social isolation, especially for those who do not conform to traditional community norms or values. Differences in values and worldviews between rural and urban populations can lead to misunderstandings and divisions, often reflected in national discourse and politics. Environmental concerns manifest differently in rural and urban contexts. Cities face challenges such as air pollution, traffic congestion, and the urban heat island effect. Urban planning must contend with sustainable development, green space preservation, and waste management. However, cities also have opportunities for environmental innovation through public transit systems, green architecture, and climate resilience initiatives. Rural areas grapple with different environmental issues, including land degradation, pesticide use, and vulnerability to climate change impacts, like droughts and floods. Rural economies that depend on agriculture and natural resources are especially sensitive to environmental changes. Conservation efforts in rural areas focus on protecting biodiversity, managing water resources, and promoting sustainable farming practices. Tensions may arise between environmental regulations and the economic needs of rural industries, complicating efforts to implement nationwide environmental policies. Political and ideological differences between rural and urban residents have become increasingly pronounced. Urban areas tend to lean liberal, favoring policies that support social diversity, environmental protection, and expanded public services. Urban voters often prioritize issues such as climate change, healthcare access, and education reform. Cities serve as strongholds for progressive movements and political activism, contributing to dynamic policy debates and civic engagement. Rural America, on the other hand, tends to favor conservative values, emphasizing individual responsibility, limited government, and traditional cultural norms. Rural voters are more likely to support candidates who prioritize agriculture, gun rights, and religious freedoms. These political differences contribute to polarization and affect national elections, legislative priorities, and social cohesion. Bridging this political divide requires empathetic dialogue, mutual respect, and recognition of shared challenges that transcend geographic boundaries. Community engagement takes different forms in rural and urban settings. Urban residents may participate in advocacy groups, neighborhood associations, or online activism. They often have access to a wider array of public forums, media platforms, and civic organizations. However, urban communities may struggle with social fragmentation and weakened interpersonal bonds. In rural areas, community ties are often stronger, with neighbors helping one another in times of need, and local institutions playing central roles in daily life. Volunteerism, church involvement, and grassroots organizing are common in rural communities. This strong social fabric can foster resilience, but may also resist outside perspectives and be slow to change. Strengthening community engagement across both environments can help build inclusive networks and empower citizens to address local and national challenges collaboratively. Public services and infrastructure differ in availability and quality across rural and urban areas. Urban centers benefit from well-developed transportation systems, public utilities, and emergency services. Cities typically offer public transit, sanitation, and housing assistance programs that support diverse populations. However, urban infrastructure can be strained by high demand, leading to service delays, overcrowding, and maintenance issues. Rural areas often face aging infrastructure, limited transportation options, and underfunded public services. Roads, bridges, and water systems may be in disrepair, and public transit is often non-existent. Emergency response times may be longer due to geographic isolation. Investments in rural infrastructure are critical to ensuring equity and improving quality of life, yet funding remains a persistent challenge. Enhancing rural infrastructure requires targeted policy solutions, community input, and sustained political will. Crime and safety perceptions vary widely between rural and urban settings. Urban areas typically report higher crime rates, particularly in densely populated neighborhoods. Law enforcement agencies in cities must address complex issues such as gang violence, drug trafficking, and property crimes. Despite higher crime statistics, urban residents often benefit from faster police response times and access to victim support services. Rural areas generally experience lower crime rates, but law enforcement presence may be limited. Officers often cover large geographic areas, which can delay emergency responses. Some rural communities struggle with substance abuse, domestic violence, and property crimes that go underreported. The lack of anonymity in small towns may deter victims from seeking help due to fear of social stigma. Improving public safety in both settings involves community policing, mental health support, and collaboration between local, state, and federal agencies. Looking ahead, the future of rural and urban America depends on addressing shared and distinct challenges. Urban areas must manage growth sustainably, invest in equitable development, and reduce environmental impacts. Expanding affordable housing, improving public education, and fostering inclusive economies will be essential for urban resilience. For rural America, revitalization efforts must focus on economic diversification, healthcare access, infrastructure investment, and digital inclusion. Empowering rural communities through local leadership, education, and entrepreneurship can foster long-term prosperity. Bridging the rural-urban divide requires a comprehensive approach that acknowledges the unique strengths of each while promoting collaboration, innovation, and mutual understanding. Ultimately, the American story is incomplete without both its rural heartlands and urban engines. By learning from one another and building on shared values, rural and urban communities can move forward together, forging a more connected, compassionate, and resilient nation.